Oh hey, it's Wes, and today we're going to talk again about the Godox AD200. Let's look at it. So a long time ago, early on in my YouTube career, I did a little review of the AD200 and compared it to the V860 Mark II. It's been a long time since then, and I have subsequently shot many more photos with the AD200, and many more photos with the V860 Mark II. We're not going to talk an awful lot about this guy, because, quite frankly, I don't use this a lot anymore. I don't do a lot of on-camera flash, it's kind of a last resort. I do have 2 or 3 of them, well, 3 to be exact, and always keep them in my kit in case I do need something on camera. But really, this flash right here has become my workhorse, the AD200. Now I also have an AD600 Pro that does the real heavy lifting outside, say midday sun. But most of my flash work is off camera with the AD200, so this is going to be a long-term review, real long-term. I don't know how long it's been this long. There'll be a lot of image samples, presumably, depending on how ambitious editing Wes is feeling. And if you want to see higher resolution versions of those, just head down to the description. There'll be a link there to my website where you can see larger blow-upable versions of the images. Let's head to the categories. Number 1, build quality. This one is something that could be debated just a little bit. A lot of people have had a similar issue that I have had with my AD200, and that is the back screen. I have 2 AD200s. I have managed to not smash one of them, so give me a pat on the back for that. But this guy was on a light stand that was not even extended at the bottom, had a softbox on it that was not expanded, and a very light breeze came along and knocked it over. It fell on its corner and the screen shattered. Now, I will say it is entirely my fault that this fell, and this was quite a long time ago before I had assistants at all my shoots. Nowadays there's usually somebody carrying around my light stands and holding them. Hey, big roller. And so that's much less likely to happen. Thankfully, that AD600 Pro is not cheap. That is a knock I'm going to have to give against this. If it was only me that has had this happen, and not a lot of people that I've talked to, and it's kind of an expensive repair for a low price item, in Canada I'd be looking at over $100 to get this fixed after shipping and maybe exchange and so forth, depending on where I send it. It's just not really worth it to me, because the screen doesn't do all that much for me because it's mostly controlled by my flash controller. But let's get back to build quality. Overall, this is a pretty solid package. Very compact, got some vents on it. Overall, if you use this in just a tiny sputter of rain, it's not going to be a huge issue. Happens to me all the time. I've never had an issue. I don't recommend taking it out into real rain, but you don't have to worry about it too much. The flaps are pretty good. The ports are covered up. I can't even get this flap open because I've never opened them. Ugh. There. And one thing I love about this is the exact size and shape. It's great for sliding into a bag, and in a slot in the camera bag where I sometimes have the space for, say, a 70 to 200, I can just take 2 of these, slap it down in there. Really easy to carry these around and throw them in a bag. And the build design is pretty well considered. You've got a 1/4-20 socket on 2 sides of the flash, depending on which way you want to face it. Lots of configurations. You can mount this on a tripod with the included adapter that comes with it in the box. You can stick it in the Godox S-type bracket. You can mount it on the AD-B2, pair it up with another one. You can use a Fresnel head. You can use a bare bulb head. You can use a round head. You can use the LED head. Don't have one of those. The LED on this is pretty great anyway. There are modifiers that you can slap onto these. There are modifiers native to the Fresnel head, but Godox is moving away from those in favor of the magnetic adapters that you can slap on this guy. If you want to see my review of the round head, or initial overview of the round head and the adapters, check out a little link there, link in the description. I have lots more to say about it. Don't want to waste time on it here, but I've enjoyed these. Very convenient. Additionally, the battery is very easy to work with. Pops out, pops in. I've got some extra batteries. Battery life is fantastic, lasts a long, long time. I've never really had any issue with having to change a battery in the middle of anything because it just keeps on going. So overall, build quality, I'm pretty satisfied. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Light quality. This is where being a kind of a budget strobe comes into play. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just not saying that this is a professional level of light output coming out of this AD200. Well, there's nothing coming out of this AD200 right now. There we go. Color consistency is okay. It's just fine. It doesn't bounce around too much, but it does vary. And light output consistency, again, is fine, but if you import a whole bunch of images from the same sequence, and you can see pretty clearly that the light output changes just a little. Not so much that you're going to have ruined images, but enough that if you want exact consistency, you can't just batch apply the same exposure to all of your files. You're going to have to go in and tweak things just a little bit. It's not as consistent as, say, an AD400, AD600 Pro, or maybe something much more expensive from ProPhoto. Overall, it's good, not great. Light quality, it's going to vary depending on your adapted modifier on this, and that's where you actually get some points on this. You can produce the kind of light you want in any given situation because it's so versatile. So that brings it up to 7 out of 10 for light quality. Feature set. Whoa boy. I've already talked about this a bit, so I don't need to say too much more, but there is no other flash strobe light producing device for photographers that is as versatile as this thing. You can even get a remote head adapter for this and just mount the head to your camera, no problem. I've seen people mount this entire thing to your camera, hot shoe. I don't recommend that, you might break it, this and your camera, so just don't do that. And this flash works in concert with Godox's huge line of transmitters and flashes and receivers, so this thing is incredibly versatile. It does whatever you want it to do. It turns into whatever you want it to. It's kind of the chameleon of flashes, and there's simply nothing that compares to this level, so feature set is easily a 10 out of 10. Value. Again, this is a strong suit for the AD200. This thing comes in at $299, which, I mean, it's more expensive than some value speed lights, but what else can you get for $299? You can get an AD360. It does have slightly more power than this, but it's kind of a messy setup. You have two separate pieces, always separated by a wire. This one you can arrange it in that manner, or you can have it all in one. So obviously this is kind of a preferable setup for me at least, maybe not for you. And then there is, of course, the V860 Mark II. This is a pretty high value item, 180 bucks. Not quite as bright as this. Probably not quite as durable. Got this hot shoe people keep breaking. I mean, it's never broken on me, so I'm not too worried about it myself. But this is only about half as powerful, a third as powerful depending on the situation. In high-speed sync, this behaves a little bit better than this does. Speaking of which, when you use this in high-speed sync, if you're using mirrorless camera or a higher-end DSLR in mirror lockup mode, you gotta make sure you have your electronic first curtain shutter disabled, or you will get some banding pretty early on, like as low as like 1/600th of a second. There'll be some, around 1/2000th, your images are destroyed. Again, just turning off the electronic first curtain shutter will mitigate that, but just don't make that mistake. I've made that mistake quite a few years ago, but now I'm quite used to it. So this does struggle at higher power output, so although it's a 200 watt second flash, once you get it up to 200 watt seconds, like 1-to-1 power, if you start firing it off a lot, especially in high speed sync, this will start struggling pretty quickly. So I don't recommend using this a lot beyond 1/4, 1/2 power, especially if you're using HSS. So just a little side note there. Again, back to value. We've got the AD400, twice as many watt seconds, 200 to 400. Well, that's a whole 650 bucks. And let's not even dare go into the ProPhoto relatives to this thing. You've got the A1, which is less than half the power of this for $1,000. It can attach on camera, but it's not quite as versatile as this. You can have a round head with magnetic attachments, lawsuit pending, we'll talk about that more later. And then you have the ProPhoto B10, which is slightly more power than this at 250 watt seconds. Mind you, a little more reliable when firing at full power. But that's $1,600. You can buy a lot of these for $1,600, and this is smaller. So, on the value side, again, this thing's hard to beat. It's a 9 out of 10. So overall, we've got 34 out of 40. That's a strong number. What does it mean? Nothing really, it's just a bunch of numbers. What do I think about it? I love the AD200. It goes with me everywhere, especially in wedding receptions, anything indoor. This is my go-to. I hope you've liked the image samples. Again, if you want to see more of that, there's a link in the description. If you want to pick up an AD200, and somehow you don't have one already, I have some affiliate links in the description if you want to send me $1 or $2 from your purchase and not pay any extra for it. Do you have an AD200? What do you think about it? Tell me. Send me a comment, and I'll get right back to you. I spent a lot of time down in the comments. Well, at least I have my notifications turned on, so I find out about them pretty quickly. If you have any other ideas or things that I should try out, again, leave me a comment. I'll get back to you. So, until next time, go take some photos.